Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. Lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you. I know that life outside.
Good evening, goeienaand, loving live family, and welcome to tonight's live stream. And before I get our guests on, there's just some information I'd like to share with you. First, this rather interesting but very relevant photo. One photograph that puts South Africa into perspective. Let's have a look at that. There we go. I guess that kind of sums up South Africa, doesn't it? And okay, the other bit of information I'd like to share with you is this little chart. Have a look at the price of gold right now. This is live. And you're looking at nearly 60,000 Rand. Just today, the price of gold has gone up over 1,000 Rand. And silver is going to be the next one to kick in very shortly. So for those of you who've invested in gold and silver, well done. Really well done. Hi, Michaela. All right, I'm going to kick off tonight's live stream with this little video clip because it kind of sums up the state of the agricultural industry in South Africa. Oh, let's have a look at this.
And then the next thing, there was this photograph. I was on it. It was taken in our embassy in Berlin, and I stood right behind the minister. On his invitation, he invited me to join him to Berlin, where I was photoshopped out. So we cannot be less vocal. We must be more vocal, and we cannot be scared off by this kind of action.
I thought this was something you only read about in 1984, where people are photoshopped out of photographs by the government as if they don't exist, just because they dared to go against the narrative, the state-approved narrative.
Yeah, I have spoken to literally hundreds of farmers from Cape Town to Messina and from Durban to Port Nolloth. Smallholders, big mega farmers, poor farmers, wealthy farmers, black farmers and white farmers. If you don't have a title deed on farmland, you don't have collateral to offer to a bank, then you don't have access to financing. We have today around 4,800 South African and Zimbabwean commercial farmers farming in 44 countries in Africa. I do not know all of them, but I know most of them. I can tell you all of them are using their South African property as collateral to access the financing for their fertilizer and their seed and their diesel and their mechanization, wherever they farm up in Africa. So this is more than just certainty of ownership. A title deed market-related compensation in a forced acquisition. That security of value is also the very basis of the free market system. It's the cornerstone of collateral.
All right, guys, that was just a short clip to give a political spin on what's going on. I'm now going to get our guests on. Give me a second while I just set this up. Okay. Won't be a second here. There we go. Now. All right. Hello, Klaas. How are you, buddy?
Good evening, Scott. Thank you very much for accommodating me. And yeah, I'm doing well. Under the circumstances, it's very wet Johannesburg, and there's a lot of work that needs to go out. But I'm privileged to be here, and glad that I can put a couple of things into perspective with regards to farm attacks and farm murders in South Africa.
Right. I'll just get Johan on so that we can get the show on the road. While I'm doing that, tell me a bit about yourself. What is your story?
Scott, around about in 2023, I was looking for something on farm attacks and farm murders, and realized that there wasn't any. At that point, I was on Twitter already for a couple of years, and I saw a snippet here and a snippet there, and I decided, you know what, let's make it a task, a hard task, to become a voice for farm murders and farm attacks, and that's where I started growing from there. I started doing videos here and there. The quality of my videos has grown a lot since, and I've grown a lot as well. But I must add that along the way, I've had a lot of help from a lot of people that is putting me on the right track with regards to production, with regards to facts. I also started becoming involved in the keeping of statistics as an independent on farm attacks and farm murders. And yes, the stats that I bring forth every month, once a month, there's a video that it's going out. And there's now a requirement for those videos to be sent out in English, because there's quite a stir internationally with regards to what is actually going on in South Africa with regards to farm attacks and farm murders. So there's quite a few videos that's still going out in Afrikaans, and that's mostly for local content. But I've done English videos in the past, and people said to me, you know what, you're not very well in English, so rather speak to Afrikaans. But I've done 1 month, I think 3 months ago, I did an Afrikaans and English one on the same statistics back to back, and it went down well. So just to serve the purpose of what is happening in South Africa, I will endeavor to continue doing those videos.
Right. Now, Johan, can you turn your camera on? Oh, there you go.
Can you see me?
I can see you now.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Johan, look, Klaas has just introduced himself. I'm going to hand over to you to have the discussion. So,
Right.
In your hands, mate. Go ahead.
Okay, Klaas, you and I have been talking quite a lot. I've asked you to look into the historical situation pertaining to farm murders, because it doesn't stand in isolation. For instance, the Ndebele says to me that they've come into South Africa some 780 years ago. There were no blacks in South Africa. They came from the Great Lakes, so they're immigrants. So, I always like to look at the historical situation, and now I give it over to you. Please carry on.
There's actually a study that was made with regards to what they call the Fakwani, and the blacks in South Africa actually came to South Africa about 250 years after the first whites landed in Cape Town. The only people that were in South Africa, or the southern part of Africa at that point, were the Khoi, or the Khoisan as we know them. But as things progressed, and we know that there was a lot of politics involved, the Dutch landed in the Cape, and then the British took over, and then the territory was given back to the Dutch, and then the British came and they took the country back again. And then in 1820, they brought the settlers here, which was a spill-off of the Napoleonic Wars. And there's a lot of people in Britain that were unemployed at that point, and they decided to bring those people here specifically to be a buffer between the colony and the Xhosa in the east. Now, at the same time, in about 1834, King Faku of Limpopo, he gave land to the Dutch farmers to be a buffer between him and the Zulu at that point. And that area was from the Mpumazi River in the north, which is quite deep into KwaZulu-Natal, and it's just south of Durban. I think it's about 60 kilometers south of Durban, where the Mpumazi comes out into the sea. And then all the way south to the Mbashi River. Now, I checked that on Google Maps, and the distance as the crow flies between the two rivers is about 285 kilometers. So that's quite a big stretch of land. And if you consider that that land was given to the Dutch farmers to be a buffer between Faku and the Zulu, then that land must still be in somebody's hands. But at this stage, looks like the Eastern Cape has swallowed all that up. And we'll get to the expropriation without compensation laws and everything, and the Land Acts a bit later in the show. But there were two factors that is very important here. The Boers were raided on a regular basis, and the garrison in Grahamstown simply weren't able or weren't interested in helping the Boers. So the Boers actually had to go and recruit these cattle themselves. And that was where the border wars between 1779 and 1851 came in. Plus, what also happened, and which was a great cause for the Boers to actually move out of the Eastern Cape. And if you think about where the Boers came from and where they moved from, it wasn't from the Western Cape, from the Stellenbosch areas. The colony was populated quite far to the east of Cape Town, and the 1820 settlers, they actually found the places like Grahamstown, where the garrison was kept, places like Port Alfred, and also the current town of Port Elizabeth, which is now known as Tabera, which is a major port for South Africa. And so they actually came from the Eastern Cape, and then from there on they moved north as Boers going to populate the areas or going to seek peace in the areas further north.
Okay, so the whole situation boils down to one simple thing. The ground didn't belong to any specific body. I mean, these chants of the ground belonged to my ancestors is bullshit. I mean, you can't put it any clearer. There was nobody on the ground. Even the black people that came in from the Great Lakes. So we are in agreement on that.
Yeah, you're quite correct, Johan. If you look at who the guy was that actually gave the land in the Eastern Cape to the Boers, that was King Faku. So he must have been there at about the same time as the colony started growing towards the east, and where the 1820 settlers came in, and then he decided to give that portion of land to the Boers to protect himself from Dingaan and his raiders.
Can I just interrupt for a second there, because I studied the Griqua people and their history, and when the bastards, as they were called in the 1700s, they were the coloured people, left Cape Town and moved up north. They didn't come across any Nguni or Zulu or any other black tribes. The only people they came across were Hottentots or Khoi and San. That was it. And another interesting fact is after they set up Griqua Town and Kimberley was discovered and the Boers had come through before in the Free State and all that sort of stuff, they moved to East Griqualand, which was known at that time, that's about the same area you're talking about, it was known at that time as no man's land because everybody had been chased out by the Zulus. So you had this buffer which became East Griqualand, you had the Xhosa south of the buffer, and you had the Zulus north of the buffer, and there was this big area, as I said, called No Man's Land, which became East Griqualand. So there were large areas of South Africa where there was no one living, and the only people who were living there were nomadic little groups like the Khoi and the San, and that was it.
Yeah, because these historical facts, they put a lie to the situation of people claiming if the land belonged to their ancestors. The situation for expropriation without compensation. Because in the end, this is the excuses they use to commit farm murders. They come with this nonsense of fair, equitable distribution. There's nothing fair and equitable about that. But let's get back to the farm murders, because this is the historical situation, and you need to know about the historical situation and have appreciation for it. Klaas, farm murders.
If I can continue, just to take it back to 1854, where the land was given to the Dutch. At that point, and there's a huge portion of South African history that's missing here. The British regime at that point, and aided by the Cape Church, made the conditions absolutely impossible for the people at that point. If you did not submit to the church, they would actually torture your children, and for the parents to submit to the church. And that's where the Boers decided there's so many factors here, let's move north. And if you look at that situation with the garrison in Grahamstown being unable or unwilling to protect the farmers, we're sitting with exactly the same situation in South Africa at the moment in 2025, where the police or the defense force, for that matter, is totally not willing, and also not capable of protecting the farmers, which is the livelihood of all of South Africa.
Well, I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something really interesting, and again, this involves the Griqua. Back in the times when the Great Trek started and the Boers started going through the Free State, the Griquas had already established farms. They actually had title deeds to farms. They predated the Boers going through, and there was a big ruckus because the Boers started basically taking over farms which the Griquas had claimed. And the British actually came to the aid of the Griqua to try and tell the Boers to leave them alone because it's their land. And that didn't go too well for the British. So they decided, this was under Sir Harry Smith, they had a meeting in Bloemfontein which Adam Kock III, who's a Griqua, went to, and at that meeting, Sir Harry Smith said to Adam Kock, tough titties. I hate to use that word, but get off the land, we'll give you it to the Boers. So if there was ever anyone who could make land claims in South Africa, this is the only time it's happened, it's the Griqua in the southern part of the Free State, south of the Reet River. They then, after they were pushed off their land, they went to a place called Philippolis, which is right down, if you look at the map, the southern part of the Free State. And they fled over the Drakensberg and landed up in, as I said just now, No Man's Land, which became East Griqualand. That was the Griquas under Adam Kock. And if you go to Philippolis today, there's a big Griqua community still there in this little town. It's fascinating, but that's the only area where the Afrikaners or the Boers actually displaced a group of people who actually had land title. And that was the Griquas back in the very early 1800s.
And that's actually the first expropriation, eh?
Sorry?
It's actually the first expropriation without compensation, taking the land away from the Griqua and giving it to the Boers.
Well, actually, they did the Boers did compensate them, but it was very one-sided. I mean, the average land at that time was about 3,000 acres for the Griqua, and often it would be a bottle of brandy. But the Boer would give the Griqua a bottle of brandy to go and drown his sorrows and just claim the land. But that's what happened back in the early 1800s. But that's the only time recorded where there's been a displacement of a group of people who've actually settled and established farms in South Africa. And that was, as I say, the Boers south of the Riet River. There were a couple of farms in Bloemfontein. In fact, Kimberley, the big hole of Kimberley was on a Griqua farm. That was originally a Griqua farm. That guy was obviously displaced because of the big hole of Kimberley. But, there were some amazing bits of land that the Griqua had before the Boers went through on the Great Trek. Sorry, guys, back to you.
Herman Gillamy wrote a book, Maverick Africans. And he specifically goes on about after the Groot Trek and the battle at Bloedrivier and the Boers settling all over Free State and the old ZAR. And he said specifically the Veldkornets, which would relate to a lieutenant colonel, became magistrates in an area, and they would help themselves to ground for farms. They would employ the white Afrikaans speaking on their farms and treat them worse than the black workers. Now, what was interesting is that in the first Carnegie report on poverty, to which I had access at varsity because I worked on the second one, the Carnegie report states that the white squatter is too lazy to work on the rich Dutch farmer's farm, which contradicts totally what Herman Gillamy says. But the first Carnegie report was written by D.F. Malang, the first prime minister after 1948. It was written by his son with the Carnegie people, who actually invited the Carnegie Foundation to South Africa. Now then, what subsequently happened was these people, these voortrekkers and their descendants, moved into the Soutpansberg in northern Transvaal. Look, they were not farming because it was rugged and wild. So they were hunting for subsistence. And they then gave rifles to all their black workers to hunt with. And guess what happened? They chased the white farmers out of the Soutpansberg. So in other words, yes, things happened and things were created. And that's why it happened. Now we go further. We come to modern day farm murders. And again, back to you, Klaas. Please take it further.
Johan, farm murders come as far back as 1947 if we take the modern history with a bit of a lull and then picking up again in 1965 and then going on, and at that point we called it terrorism, because they would come in from Zambia on the order of Oliver Tambo and come and do terrorism here in South Africa. They would plant landmines here and landmines here. There were quite a few instances of landmines being planted and being. There's two whole families in the Messina area, the Donations, and I'm not sure what the name of the other family is. I did a study on that, where they went on the Sunday afternoon drive and they drove over a big landmine. It was actually supposed to be for a tank. And they actually did a patrol on that road earlier, but the vehicle was very light, and with all the family on the vehicle was sufficiently loaded for the vehicle to actually set off that landmine. And one of those children was never found. So that's how it escalated, and like I say, we called it terrorism. And at that point, we started inventing the commander system. Now, the commander system was sort of a spin-off, or not a spin-off. It was after you've done your national service, you would come back to your area and you would meet up with one of the commanders. In 1993, the ANC decided that they would get rid of the strength of the defense force, they would get rid of the strength of the police force. And the police actually relied strongly on the commander system in that area, on your rural areas to complement because of the great distances that had to be traveled. And the commanders could reach over there because every little town had its own little commander, and with their own headquarters, and they saw to the protection of their certain areas, the patrolling of their areas, and that's how they filled the voids. And that was a threat for the incoming regime, and that's why Thabo Mbeki decided at 2003 to abolish the commander system. If you look at the commander system, those were close-knit groups. I mean, those were neighbors, friends, and they would look after each other's property. And like I said, the commanders were also fed by the national service system, and this created a huge element of trust between the members because during their national service, they bonded over there already. They bonded during the border war. And these units also took on new blood to maintain these ranks. And at that point, it wasn't uncommon for a 16-year-old girl being able to stand their ground with an FN rifle. And that was the result of training that was kept up in military tradition and custom. But this was also the groundwork laid in schools with the cadets. And you would have a young guy who is just at that point, we called it Standard 6, I think it's grade 7 at this stage. And every Friday he would don his cadet uniform, and he was taught drilling, and he was taught in certain skills, military customs. And it wasn't just the boys; the girls were also given opportunity to get training in basic military skills as well, and youth readiness, if I can put it as such. And there were even some schools that had girls drill pelotons as well. Now, while the guys were out on the rugby field doing the drilling, the girls were doing certain skills like homemaking, basic stuff that would eventually assist the men in the field. And preparing our youth from the age of 13 certainly caused the South African commander system as a part-time military force to be disbanded between 2003 and 2008. And you will see at the point of the transition of power in 1994, the national conscription campaign also was abolished. And there was a very light drizzle of intake of short-term soldiers that would do a year, and he would do just basic military stuff, and the rest of the time, because he wasn't so trained, he was actually just sitting around for a year in uniform and getting a small pay. Now, with all these things, with the commander system being abolished, there was also another few voids that was being created, which also created a lot of other opportunities. You would have the police. At that point, the police also started dwindling down, and they started rather concentrating on public order police and visible policing than trained police in the investigation of cases. Now, there's no capability. There was an article by Mail and Guardian in 2023 that stated that there is no investigation capability in the police anymore, because, like I said, it was about visible policing and public order policing. That's the only thing that remained. But that created another void that was quickly filled by something else. You see, one of the objectives of breaking down the police force, breaking down the South African National Defence force and the co-units of the commanders on the ground after you've done your national service, was also that there was a gap that was left that was quickly being filled by your private security firms. Your private security firms, they quickly learned exactly what was going on the farm. And that's a hypothesis that was shared with me about 2 months ago, that you get the private security firm, let's say Eagle Security, and he moves into the Marble Hall area, hypothetically speaking. And very soon he would make friends, and he would get new customers, and the customers would refer each other because these guys are actually doing something that is needed because the police force are simply not there. But the hypothesis in this case is that these security firms knew exactly what was going on your farm. So that created a sort of a database for what is available on the farm, what could be looted. And also, surplus to that was the fact that the system worked in a way that your domestic worker in your kitchen, somebody that you would trust for 5, 6, 7, 10 years, was suddenly giving out information to your potential farm attackers. And
But
that is
can I just add on to what you're saying? One thing I've learned from people in the know, in the dark recesses, is that how many of the security company, the shareholders, are living in Soweto, of major criminals, that the shares in these companies have been sold off. So in other words, when you come to the point where we're starting from where farm murders start and reasons and why and what and expectations, etc., we get into a situation where by using the system, the criminals are taking over, and they are in the shadows because everything coming into the security company, the shareholders can have sight of. And exactly what you're saying now here, they know what's on the farm. Please.
And if you take the planning for a farm attack is about a 90-day cycle. During that 90-day cycle, you get information that has been gathered. All that information is being collected. Let's say you put this whole in like, let's call it a docket, and everything about that farm, the amount of firearms you have, the way the farm workers are getting paid, what is going through your farm, what are you actually farming with, your daily routine, when are you leaving for school, when are you coming back from school, your firearms, how many people is on the farm, how many of them are actually capable. All those things are noted. The ages of these people are being noted. So that when a farm attack occurs, they know exactly the two people that we need to take out. The woman is 76 and the man is 81. So we need to take them out. And that is running over to another one of your topics as well. So they take these people out, they bludgeon them, they're really hurting these people, and we're going to get to that as well now. And what they do is they sometimes it's a scare tactic, and sometimes there's a value on the farm that is not above the table, like your minerals and stuff. And they need to get the people off the farm, so it's going to be easier for the bigger consortiums to get the farm. So now they're taking out, let's say, for instance, and we had one such case in the Northern Cape where the woman was totally capable. I think she was in her 70s. Her husband was in his early 80s, and he he had dementia, so he didn't have an idea what his value was. And I think there was something like 11 farms in this equation. She was taken out. He was badly hurt, but he wasn't taken out. And he still doesn't know what's happened. He knows his wife is gone, and he doesn't know when his wife is going to come back. because he simply doesn't comprehend anymore. So there's so many things. Yes.
Everything what you're saying, it goes back to one simple thing. Marxist dogma. Marxist dogma, 1917, strategy was neutralize the security forces. Now,
Yes.
I've been saying this for how long? Cyril Cupcake Ramaphosa, is pushing this Marxist doctrine. This is why, because the one thing is destroying everything and then using the situation of restorative justice, of righting the wrongs of the past. Hey, they had 10 universities in the past. What's happening to it today? They've got NSFAS, which is supporting students 80,000 rand a year towards school fees, towards schooling fees, etc. But we've got so many students at university, and not one can handle a screwdriver. Instead of having technical people like Germany after Second World War I, they all want to be a boss. And what I've found, blacks in private sector, they are dreaming to go into the civil service, because that is where they are going to become millionaires. And it all comes back to what we're talking about, the farm murders, because it sounds as if we're digressing, but it all comes back to one thing: these aspirations for a better life. And there's no action. The legal system doesn't work. I mean, we'll get now a little bit later to AfriForum and the Constitutional Court's situation, kill the farmer, kill the boer, of that lout of a dead man walking, Julius Malema. I mean, he's got AIDS. He should have been in prison long ago. But nothing happens.
Yeah.
He gets rewarded by being around, and he gets bribed by white people. That's what's happening. White Afrikaans-speaking people are giving him money, and he's carrying on. Please.
You know what I find extraordinary, Johan, is the fact that you take the Democratic Alliance. They went along with EWC, and you wonder what their role is in this GNU, because it was supposed to be to keep the ANC honest. Now, by passing the bill and getting it signed, that legitimizes all the land grabs of hundreds of Africans just walking on land and taking over a farm. It's really, really disturbing that the Democratic Alliance have been party to this EWC. What are your thoughts on that?
The situation is very simple. Helen Zille represents the New World Order along with Ronald Lamola, the criminal minister of justice. We'll come back to him as well. But I mean, she comes from Black Sash from the way back.
George Soros?
And she and Tony Yengeni had an affair while at university. Tony Yengeni went to prison for a discounted Mercedes SUV during the arms deal. And the reason he went to prison was because he took Thabo Mbeki's girlfriend, Lindiwe Sisulu. So Mbeki made sure he went to prison. I mean, what happened in the arms deal? Yeah. Nobody went to prison except Tony Yengeni. But Helen Zille has got her own agenda, and she's got a couple of chihuahuas. One is John Steenhuisen, the other one is Alan Wynne. I dealt with both, and I do not hold them in high regard. They're gutless. I mean, it is amazing to see what's going on. And the big thing is the DA is not the solution. There are so many black people who see what's happening. Because while the focus is on white farmers, how many black farmers are being killed? Because what happens is 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning in the townships, they kick the doors down. They grab them from the beds and say, bring your bank card, we're going to the ATM. This doesn't get reported because the police does nothing. That is what it was. It's a typical neutralizing of the security services. And it all goes about one thing: the Marxist doctrine along with the nomenclatura. And now the other thing, what's interesting is, Helen Zille, I'm not slating the English, not at all. But they have a lot to answer for. The big thing is the Freemasons out of London, the Lords, House of Lords of London, controlled British MI6. They controlled Thabo Mbeki. They controlled Cyril Ramaphosa. He's now working for the CIA. I dealt with the Drug Enforcement Agency Special Operations Group, and I said, here is the man, Cyril Cupcake Ramaphosa, drugs. Their reply was, he's too big to touch. Duh. You want to talk again? You want to talk about the rule of law? Because what happens? Now, Cyril Ramaphosa was on record in Washington saying there are no such a thing as farm murders. Cyril Ramaphosa should be strung up like Mussolini in the Second World War. Because taking him to court is a waste of time. The people must string him up. I mean, why did they go against Zuma? Did you hear such an amount of farm murders during Zuma's time? No. Ace Magashula was from Vogel. The farmers were swearing by Ace. There were no farm murders. But when Cyril Cupcake Ramaphosa came into being, remember, he represents the New World Order. When he came back from Doha after meeting with Charles Schwab, he signed EWC into law. This is what is happening. Yes. And the big thing is, they don't care a damn whose collateral damage, whether it's white, whether it's black, whether you've got 10 degrees, whether you've got bugger all. You're just a number that's got to be dealt with. That's as simple as it is. Now, I can just mention something to you. I asked Klaas if he knows about Nkululekos. I got this from an intelligence guy way back in the military. They found this group which was called the Nkululekos. It's a criminal organization which was created in the early 1900s, and it was organized on provincial structures. And they would decide who would steal where from whom. Okay? Now, those in Nkululekos, what happens? They are being controlled by the same criminal element in the ANC. Because what happens? The military don't know where their firearms are. The military will rent out the firearms from the magazines. The deeds are committed, the firearm is returned, and the police are not able to trace the firearm forensically because the military firearms are not catalogued. This is factually that's happened. You want to rent an AK? It'll cost you 150 Rand per day in Soweto. We're talking less than $10 to rent an AK. Oh, then you've got to buy the bullets, by the way, as well. You see how easy it is? And what is happening? Look what's happening in the rest of Europe. Look what is happening. But let's continue, Klaas. Please elaborate.
Johan, like you said, and it's been proven throughout history. You can go and have a look at the Chinese. You can go and have a look in even in the US. Go and have a look at what's happened in Europe. And what happened in Russia, the moment they felt that the population was getting too strong, they started taking away the firearms. And there's been a huge thing about firearms in South Africa and being demolished by the ton, by the truckload. But thank goodness there's quite a few guys that decided they're not going to hand over their firearms because it's simply madness. You take your firearm and now go and hand it over to the police to be destroyed. Why? You bought that firearm. You have got competency on that firearm, and you are still able to afford the ammunition for it. Why hand it in? Because that's a strategy, saying let's make South Africa gun safe because look what's happening in the States, because a young man walks in and he shoots 12 people. And if you go and have a look at all those things, and it's not a guy that's nuts. Those guys are being paid because creates an atmosphere of guns are not safe. So
Yeah, let me just add to that. Michael Moore, this I call him somewhat idiotic, but he made good films. He made a film, Bowling at Columbine, about a shooting at a school. And what was interesting enough, a lady and a gentleman drew their firearms on the shooter, and only then did he surrender, after he shot how many people. And then then Michael Moore confronted a congressman about his son joining in the Marines and serving his country. And the guy just never answered him. Okay, so the whole thing is, as the saying goes, if guns are outlawed, only the outlaws will have guns. That is a fact. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's a reality. It's a way of life. Whether it's in Tokyo, whether it's in Pretoria, or whether it's Cape Town. Okay.
So you were saying about renting an AK-47 for 150 rand a day, plus you need to buy the ammo. And I asked the question, and we have a moral compass. The law says that we need to have a firearm license. But I said to somebody one day, I said, you know what the hell? Why should I have a firearm license when I'm going to be abiding by the law, which is my moral compass, because I'm a Christian, and then you get 100 other guys, he buys it off the street. And not just renting it, he buys it off the street. And that AK-47 is not catalogued. And like you say, firearms that disappears from military bases in South Africa, those are not catalogued. So why would one have a firearm license for a catalogue firearm? But like I say, we have you and I and Scott. We have a moral compass because we stay within the bounds of the law.
Just a moment. Many black people have got also a very strong moral compass, but they are delivered. They are delivered into these problems. I was working in Soweto in the beginning 1980s for the intelligence service. Okay, I found a place called the Pink Pelican, a nightclub. A guy by the name of Lucky Michaels. He came from Mozambique, and we were talking, and I nearly fell out of my chair when he told me. He said to me, I have to pay the policemen in Soweto, the white commanders. I must pay them to make sure that my liquor license stays intact. Otherwise, I can't operate. The white commanders. You know, so when we talk about moral compass, we must just be very careful because, as I said, there's a lot of black people. I mean,
yes,
I'm an anthropologist by training. So in other words, I look at the situation totally different, and I worked for more than 4 years in the Congo, in Kinshasa. The best years of my life. Listen what I'm telling you. The best years of my life. The only problem in Pretoria is the locals say to me, you speak the foreign language, but you can't speak our language. Anyway, now. In any case. But and this is what it's all about. It's preparing the ground for the, how can we call it, the weak, the perceived weak to be slaughtered. That is what it is. This is where we're standing. Because when you look at the brutality in the farm murders, the small children, the women, the men. I mean, when the British were fighting the Mau Mau in Kenya, there were many of the British special operators who came from the Second World War. They were fighting a war, a secret war, and they were killing the Mau Mau like you can't believe. And the guy said to me, we got tired. We got tired because not everybody was bad. We got tired because Britain was also lying to us. Now, what's interesting, Britain gave all of them amnesty. Whatever he did, doesn't matter. And I mean, we know where Kenya is today, and Kenya is progressing very nicely. But the main thing is South Africa. South Africa is a target, and it's a target for for highly sinister people and deeds, and Schwab and Soros and their families. De Klerk, the prostitute from Potchefstroom, his father made schoolgirls pregnant. The National Party cabinet had to arrange for abortions. Remember, abortions were illegal at that stage.
Mm-hmm.
The old senator. I mean, me and you and the rest of us, we were supposed to be set up to be pawns in the game. White or black, doesn't matter. But the main thing is what gets to me is the brutality.
Can I just add another arm to this whole thing, and it's black economic empowerment, how that has come into the agricultural industry. They're now saying, this is the ANC government, and this is under John Steenhuisen's watch at the Democratic Alliance, they're now saying that unless farmers meet triple B double E standards, in other words, they've got to have a major black owner on their farm, unless they have that, they cannot export anymore. And not only that, I watched a very disturbing video. In fact, it was less than 24 hours ago. It was actually copied from Enka, which is a big TV station in South Africa. And you had the interviewer and you had some black guy, I don't know who he was, but he was saying that, we're now going to bring BEE into water. So 80% of water is now going to be given to blacks, and only 20% is going to be given to whites. Now, I don't know how the heck they're going to do that, because you've got a river. What do? Do you have knee blankets and a piece of cardboard down the middle? I mean, how they're going to do that, I don't know. But that's what he was talking about. He was saying that whites use 98% of the water. I mean, that's a load of BS. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that 60 million blacks could not live in South Africa if they only used 2% of the water. But this was on, back to you.
Yeah, I did water audits. I was running a group of people in Mpumalanga at various municipalities doing water audits with engineers. After 8 months, I said to them, take your contract and shove it. Because whatever we advise you, you do nothing. The white engineers in the service of the state were saying, we're not going to rock the boat, we're waiting for our pension. The black guys didn't have the expertise, and the few guys who did have the expertise, the black guys, were isolated, were marginalized. Now, the big thing is you're talking about the water. Now, Cyril Ramaphosa has just announced a new state-owned entity for water management. Now, I mean, we have got 740 state-owned entities. Now, let's go back. We're talking about the farmers. What is happening? Because these people have got certain expectations, and it's not being met. Okay? Because remember, the first time they voted in 94, they said we were promised houses and fridges. That is why we're voting for the ANC. Oh, by the way, we've been told to hate the whites. Because what happened was Thabo Mbeki polarized the whole political situation. He sits behind it. He pushed this issue, BE. And do you know where it started in the 1990s? Anglo-American wrote the BE strategy.
Wow.
I had a guy working for me who used to work for Anglo in that division. There where Clem Santer used to sit. They pushed that through National Treasury in Pretoria. That is how it started. Now, where's Anglo-American? Anglo-Americans out of South Africa. Jonathan Oppenheimer is busy on electrical plants in Ghana. I said I wanted to talk to Bobby Gotzel. They said, no, Bobby Gotzel is being bribed not to talk to you. And Nikki Oppenheimer. Oh, no. Blame me. That's what happens if you want to live that life. You know, so, I mean, Johan Rupert talks about Afrikaner. Johan Rupert's talking nonsense. The only thing he sees is, how can I use Afrikaner to get dollars into my pocket? That is the situation. You know, and the whole thing is, nothing stands in isolation. Everything is related. Believe me, this is where it goes to. And also, then it goes back to the courts. Even if they do catch the perpetrators on farm murders, I've seen video clips where these gangs approach the farms with radio jammers.
Yeah.
No, because I've dealt in that market. They were coming there with these jammers on their back to jam cell phones, to jam radios.
Where does the
Nothing
money come from?
stands in isolation. Yes, Klaas.
And I spoke about that 2 weeks ago about the jammers. Like I said, those jammers are $20,000. That translated into about 350,000 South African rand. And I say it again because the farm murder or the farm attack numbers are down for March. I mean, we're sitting at about 9 attacks and 2 murders. But and everybody says, yeah, but it's quiet, and it's because Trump is now involved, and because this, and because that, because the whole world knows about what's going on in South Africa, which is not the case. But look at the cash in transit numbers. We had one this morning, Friday 28th of March, on the East Rand, and I spoke about it in the newsflash this afternoon. And we had one. I think we had 2 more in this week. Anywhere in South Africa, I think one of them was in KZN. So if the cash in transit numbers are up, the farm murders are down, because the cash in transit, they see to it that there is sufficient money to get the farm murder or the farm attacker to have that jamming device. He's got to have a firearm. He's got to have transport. He's got to have all sorts of things. All those logistics needs to come out of money from somewhere, and the money is coming from cash in transits. And so far, nobody's questioning.
Now the story goes further. Some of that money of cash in transit flows to the Thule House.
Yes.
You know. I just want to make an observation here.
Yes.
I worked at Barclays Bank in Greytown back in the 1970s. And, you know, on a Thursday afternoon, I think it was, we used to get a lot of cash in. And we used to put in these, it was just a cardboard box. And I would take these cardboard boxes. Everybody knew these things were full of cash. Maybe, you know, 500,000 rand, which was a lot of money back in the 1970s. And I would, with my little, sorry, not a wheelbarrow, a trolley. I would actually have these things on a trolley. And I'd walk about 500 yards to the post office, down the street next to other people. Never, ever had a problem. Arrive at the post office, wait in the queue with these boxes of money, you know, big boxes of money, and hand them over to the person behind the counter. They would then go on a train from Greytown to Pietermaritzburg, which was like the regional head for Barclays Bank. And I did this every week for years. Never, ever, no, you know, I'd say hello to people and, you know, and everybody knew these things were full of cash. You try that today, you won't get 5 yards.
5 yards out of the bank, because the bank teller will call his mates. This is what's happening.
Yeah.
But you see, it goes back to one thing. There is no discipline, because the idea is there mustn't be discipline. The whole country must be destroyed, because why is the expropriation without compensation? Because Cyril Ramaphosa wants to take the Nkonyama Trust's ground in Zululand. He wants to take the Zulu ground because there are lots of minerals for him and his brothers-in-law, Jeff Radebe and Patrice Motsepe. I mean, remember, when Cyril started doing some business, he was managing Malope Bakeries, or Sam Malope's Bakeries. He ran it into the ground. Then Anglo used him, and they paid him a restraint of trade, something in 30 million rand. don't know for what exactly. And his words in the press were, it's so easy to make money. Excuse me? He was only a front. He never understood what they're doing there. The problem is, the prostitute from Potchefstroom thought, and he said, they are going to bribe the shit out of the ANC within 30 years. They forgot one thing. You're dealing in a social laboratory. These are not idiots. These are clever people. They learn very fast. Remember, as a young man, he goes to initiation school. In that initiation school, he gets taught to lie, to steal, and to beg. He's got to do an exam at the end of the course. If he doesn't pass it, he gets the hiding of his life. Okay? And he doesn't get circumcised. It was a survival tool. That same mentality still exists. Credo Mutwa, the biggest Sangoma in Southern Africa who's passed away, was my friend. I would sit with him in the 80s in the Oppenheimer gardens in Jabulani, and these aggressive young blacks would come there and they would be very rude to him of me being a white guy in the middle of Soweto. He had this massive sword. He'd just go and fetch his sword and he'd tell them, they better behave, we're now going to talk. End of story. End of story. But the big problem is people don't understand. People don't understand. People don't understand about safety. The South Africans, Leon Lowe from the Free Market Foundation, in the 80s specifically said he couldn't believe it. South Africa has a law on what the size of a toilet roll should be, 500 sheets. That comes from the old Dutch mentality. Yeah. So everybody's attitude is, well, the police must protect me. Listen, the police is not going to protect you. I brought criminal charges just before the election last year at Sunnyside against Armscor and the ex-minister of defense and the head of the defense force, including high treason. Only black detectives. In 2 hours, my case was registered. I said, look, this is a massive case. Please transfer it to the Hawks. And they all said to me, you know, we've been sitting here for 16 to 19 years without being promoted. How do you think we've got to live? And this is what is happening. Because, as I said, the brutality of the farm murders is only a precursor. Listen to what I'm saying. It's only a precursor because they came from Quattro. Quattro, the Democrats were killed. Oliver Tambo was never a Democrat. If you were a Democrat in the Quattro camps, where Nosiviwe Mapisa and Kakula was Jacob Zuma's second command at the intelligence side, you would be killed. They wanted totalitarian control. And this is what it's all about. It's not the boiling of the frogs, it's the totalitarian control coming in. Cyril Ramaphosa's got 8 billion. Try 28 billion, man. And today, there's 100,000 guys earning R1 million a year who hasn't paid income tax. You see, if nothing works, if there's no respect for anything, how the hell are you going to stop farm murders? And just this, there's a guy by the name of P.W. Becker. He sits on Pala Pala. P.W. Becker is a gutless swine. P.W. Becker was 19 when he was recruited by the CIA as a drug runner. He's now in his mid-50s. He worked at Project Coast, where Bouter Basson was working. He's also the guy that, after Project Coast was exposed, who carried the anthrax strains in a tube of toothpaste in little vials on his own contention to America, and they paid him a lot of money. With the elections in 1994, he ran with the Suidlanders to the Free State to go and hide. Today, he's an advisor to Cyril Ramaphosa on Pala Pala. Okay? Now, what's happening there? The Gaddafi money. A big portion, $250 million went there. And his cousin, Willie Marie, works at Denel on the IT situation. He sits on the IT and he creates havoc throughout all the system. And they are targeting all the farms from the farm murders to be bought up for next to nothing, which they buy through another cousin, and then they eventually sell it to one or other big company, big corporation. That is how they make their money. It's always about the money. It's always. And they don't care a stiff about the people dying because they have no soul. Listen what I'm saying. They have no soul. They are indeed the accursed people. Klaas.
If you look at farm murders, you will always have where there's a murder, is always somebody that is incapable of continuing the farm, or the farm is incapable of being continued by the heir. So what happens to the farm? The farm goes into an estate. At this stage, we're sitting at, and I've made a note here about it. We're sitting at a price on average, let's say top dollar, 5,000 rand per hectare. So if you look at a farm of 10,000 hectares, you're sitting at a price tag of about 50 million. So now what happens now is the farm doesn't want to sell. So now somebody comes in and is being advised of that land, and he offers a cash component of $30 million. It goes through, the heirs are happy, the estate is being paid and everything, but 6 months down the line, that same farm is swinging for $31 million rand. Because the guy that's the middleman that bought the farm from the estate, he gets an odd million just for being there and for the taxes and everything, for the transfers and everything. And that 10,000 hectares goes back into a consortium. And it's not, to give an idea, and it's not a ballpark thing. This we've had a case in Mpumalanga where the farm was worth 12 million rand, and the lady was offered, I think, half of that. There was two catches. The farm was on a land potentially having coal underneath, and she wouldn't sell. So what happens now? The ball is starting to run. Because sooner or later she's going to be under pressure to sell that farm. Sooner or later there's going to be an incident on that farm, and she's going to be compelled to sell, or if she doesn't sell, she's going to lose her life, or she's going to be so incapacitated after an attack, which often happens. Because these guys, they've got no soul, like you say, on. They move in and they use something like and I'm not, I don't know if you can see, for the people out there, this thing is very, very sharp. And a few cuts of that's a panga. The other thing that they use is a crowbar. And you can see on some of the attack photographs that the faces of the people are actually virtually bludgeoned to pulp. So now that person is incapacitated. He's sitting with a speech deficiency. He's sitting with a mental deficiency because of brain damage. So what happens now? The farm goes into the market, and the ball is kept rolling again for the bigger consortium to come and buy that farm, and then swing the farm into another one. And the bigger consortium says, "Okay, let's get control underneath." And it so happens that there are some of these companies like BHP Billiton. They come afterward, after the coal has been extracted. They do a rehabilitation of that land. But is that rehabilitation to such an extent that you would be able to carry on planting crop on that land that is going to be healthy as it would have been before the mining activity started? No. And you know what they do? They say, let's rehabilitate this land. And you get this heap over there. And I spoke to somebody, and this person said to me, "You see that heap over there? That's coal that's been stored for future use. So they extract the coal, they cover it with soil, and they cover up the mining area, and off they go. So the coal is still there. So you cannot touch that land because that land belongs to a consortium that is only interested in the minerals that's been kept stored underneath that heap of ground. And that's where our farms are going.
But let's go back to EWC. The expropriation without compensation. What is it doing? People are suddenly taking the law into their own hands. They are occupying farms. The police are incapable of enforcing the law and chasing them off the farms. The farmer can get as many court orders as he wants. I had court orders against the head of the Defence Force. He just wipes his ass on it. I mean, and the most interesting thing is going into court, the judges had meetings before with the intelligence service to blow me out of the water. They couldn't find anything wrong against me.
Yeah.
I was nailing them. But and this is the advocates, Graham Bester SC, Freder Blanche SC in Pretoria. I put the blame in front of their doors for the problems of today because it was all about money and they didn't care how they prostituted or lied or whatever, because these things, everything just escalates and escalates and escalates. Today, it's under Soweto, there's tunnels. There's tunnels which the Defence Force have access to, where weapons are being stored. I've been told about it. I'm trying to trace it. The one general who told us about it has now suddenly died. What is going on?
These tunnels are not just in South Africa, it's worldwide. And most of these tunnels are about 10 kilometers below ground. Go and have a look at some of your bigger earthquakes. What's the depth of the earthquake? 10 kilometers. So the tunnel is actually collapsing and it's close to a fault and it sets off a chain of events. And what happened in the Far East, I'm not sure which country it is, but they had a 7.7 max 7.7 earthquake there today.
Yeah,
Myanmar. Myanmar, yes. And that earthquake could be felt in Singapore, I think Vietnam, the eastern parts of India, quite far into India. So it was quite a big earthquake, and what's the cause? Continental drift? No. Because there's a system underneath the ground that has been there for millennia. So if you dug those, there's a tunnel running between Johannesburg and Port Nolloth, or the Port Nolloth area, 10 kilometers underground. So where's the rock that was extracted from those tunnels?
You're quite right. And now Rob Herzog wants to do fracking in the Karoo. I said, keep your fracking hands off the frigging Karoo. Because the main thing is, while he carries on and about everything, he makes a lot of noise, but I don't see him doing anything.
What you just said, what you just said there, Johan, I think nails the whole problem. You've got so many people who live in South Africa and talk about the problems, but they do absolutely nothing tangible to fix them. I'm sure you would like to add to that.
Look, as I said, I've already got criminal charges, including high treason, and I've informed the Hawks already. I'm expanding on these charges, including Cyril Ramaphosa, Lamola, Gwedi Mantashe, and Helen Zille. Because the main thing is stealing from the country the way they're stealing, allowing people to be killed indiscriminately, left, right, center, black and white. That is high treason. There can be no other story for it. And I will push it through. I've done it before. I've done it on private criminal prosecution. I took Peter Bruce as the editor of the Business Day. I had to sit amongst the criminals 7 times until the state made the docket disappear. I said, okay, I made my point, and on a civil case, he settled with me out of court. And you know what? He's a very competent guy, but the problem is, he's also playing a game. And I said, I haven't got time for games. Sorry. So I'm saying, I'm doing. In the end, you know what's going to happen in the next couple of months? I will issue major summonses against these people. But I come from an intelligence background. I will win in court. I will win. I've been 9 times in court for slander. I've won every case because there's ways and means. And I always say to people, forget about your legal team. Only you will win your case. You know your case. Your legal teams must only keep it legal. Otherwise, you win it. And I will win these cases. And you know how? Black and white people will help me, will give me information. They've done it before. I don't know who they are, but people are willing to supply information to stop this bullshit, this nonsense, this evil situation. Oh, and don't think I don't get threats. But I'm a nice guy. I always say, so what? I have a bigger gun than you in any case, so don't try it. Okay? I know where the guns are. So please stay away. And if you want to talk to me further, I know how to get my hands on anthrax. I know how to get Ebola. I know how to get whatever toxins. Because it's a fascinating world for me.
Yeah,
you can do it yourself.
I came into South Africa twice in 2023, in March and November. And I landed at Jan Smuts Airport on a Emirates plane. Came through customs. There was no customs. They didn't check to see if I had a visa. I literally, everybody just walked through into the lobby and off we went. There was no customs at all. That's why South Africa is the drug capital of the world. That's where all the drugs go through.
Correct. And do you know what? The drug bosses are white.
Oh, yeah.
They are white. And Cyril Ramaphosa company works for them. But let's go back to the farm murders. Is there a solution? I believe there is. And let me tell you what my solution is.
Go for it.
Every solution requires work. I'm saying 10 farmers get together and move together and live together. Create their own little town. They bring their workers together in a little town. And they work from that central point out to whatever the rest of the 10 farms are. And you have, with the modern day technology, you have cameras, you have operation rooms, you see what's happening. Because you see, I studied in France. And I went for weekends to Reims, where they make the champagne. I went into the underground cellars, drinking 20-year-old champagne. And there I saw something fascinating. No fences in the vineyards. And the reason therefore is, the vineyards belong to everybody on the basis. Number A had got 1,000 vineyards. Number B, the widow has got 3 vineyards. 3 vines, okay? Everyone has got X amount of vines, and they know which is.
Sorry, guys, we seem to have a little technical hitch here. Oh, there we are.
According to the amount of vines they've got. So why can't we do it in South Africa? Bring the farmers together and saying to them, stop your bloody bullshit. Because, you know, South Africans are a difficult breed. They can't stand together unless you kick their asses. Unfortunately, that is the truth. And when it comes to that, stand together. Don't stand back and say, security is the government's problem. The government doesn't care about you. The state doesn't care about you because they're playing another agenda. The point is, if people start working together, they negate the risk first of all. When your own workers normally start giving information away on you, now suddenly you've got 10 farms workers together in not a compound, in a nice environment, because the municipalities are willing to finance infrastructure. Okay? But you must know how to access it. And You do the things yourself. People must take responsibility. And this is where the problem comes in. People don't take responsibility. Oh, they always leave it for somebody else. There is a solution. But to get to that solution takes hard work, black and white. There is a solution. The solution always lies in the numbers. Because once you got the numbers, the criminals are on the back foot. And that's what you want.
Now, Johan, I just want to ask you this question. You mentioned Rob Hersoff a short while ago, and you said, look, he talks a lot, but he doesn't do much. What if you were talking to Rob Hersoff and he had said to you, Johan, what can I do to be more proactive in actually solving the problems with, for example, farm attacks and ECW? What would your answer be? Because we know he's very, very rich.
Yeah, look, my answer would be, remember, he says himself, he comes from a well-heeled family. The Hersoff and the Menels, Anglo-Val, they worked, they had money and they worked and they had more money. My viewpoint to him, as well as to Rupert and everybody else, put your money where your mouth is. Start with the legal process. Build a kitty, even if it's $1 billion, offshore, first of all, so the South African authorities can't lay their hands on it. And then attack through the courts.
Now, hang on,
yes,
hang on. Sorry, Johan, just to cut across you. South Africa has gone to the International Criminal Court to take Israel over what's going on in Gaza. And I have to say, I can understand, because I think it's shocking what's happening in Gaza. But is that the sort of level that you're talking about? Because the courts in South Africa are so corrupt.
Look, when you talk, I was just going to talk about the ICC. My view is on the South African legal teams going to the ICC is they've got blood on their hands. Because they never made the issue about the people killed on 7 October, about the 1,200 Israelis killed and the hostages. Therefore, I say Professor Dugard and his team under that lady, they've got blood on their hands. Remember, till now, that has cost 1.5 billion rand. It's all a bullshit story. Yes, they did get the money from Iran. Why did Israel? I cannot understand why Israel did not counter it and say, but listen, here you are with dirty hands in court. It's one of the principles you can only go to court with clean hands. Now, the main thing is, even what you're saying, and I agree with you, the courts are corrupt. We can still make South African courts work. Look at the situation now about the Constitutional Court saying that AfriForum cannot appeal Julius Malema's kill the boers, kill the farmers. I mean, what nonsense is this? I've said this and I say this again. All those people, I'm putting their names down, from Max de Pre, Pierre de Vos, Louise van Rijn, all these people who's coming and saying, you know, this is not so bad after all. Because you know what? They're the first people to run and leave everybody else with a crap. My view is very simple. This was what I would say to people such as Rob Hersoff. Let's just sue the hell out of these people. Let's sue them for damages. Even if we are not going to be successful, we're going to make their lives such a misery that this crap will stop. It will serve as a warning to everybody. Oh, and by the way, Cyril Ramaphosa will expose you because you are not in charge of your government. Minister of Police will expose you. We'll take your money and we will sue your family because they've been benefiting out of your incompetence. You've been allowing these people to be killed. That is the only way. In other words, I'm saying, if you're on when you came to South Africa in the 1600s, you were coming on a wooden ship with sails. You couldn't choose which winds you're gonna get. So if the wind was against you, what would you do? You would tack your sails. What does it mean? It means that you sail at an angle. So the wind coming from the front actually pushes in on an angle into your sails, and you still continue going forward, although slowly. So in other words, what I'm saying is, look at the tactic, look at the strategy, because interesting enough, those corrupt people, once they see the writing on the wall, they actually change their tack. And suddenly they all want to be in the good books. That's human nature. I didn't write a neuropsychology book. I'm saying this is how it is.
I totally agree. You know, I was listening again in the last 24 hours to Biz News. They've got a channel on YouTube. There were two lawyers, South African lawyers, who they were talking to, and you can look it up under Biz News. And they've been targeted by the political establishment in South Africa because they were exposing corruption at a university. And the shit that they're being put through by the legal system is exactly what you're talking about that Rob Hersov should be doing to, you know, these people who are stuffing South Africa up.
At the University of Fort here, that lady and that gentleman.
Yeah.
But see, the big thing is once you stand up, and I know this, I've been there. And listen, I'm not afraid. Well, fuck, let me tell you in plain Afrikaans, I am not afraid. I'm one of those stupid guys. I don't know what it is to be afraid. But when I go for you, I will go for you. And this is what is gonna happen very soon. The legal system is gonna be used on itself. I will make sure I'm right in the center. You know, advocates say to me, yeah, I'll see you in court for slander. And I say to him, listen, fucker, make sure you've got enough money. Which day would you like to be in court? Because this is the big thing. These people, they are conceited. Yeah. They've got, you know, they all start out as youngsters with stars in their eyes. And in no time, they understand that life is not black and white, it's gray. And it's not a nice place to be. And they become cynical, sarcastic, rude, and they don't care a damn for what's happening. This is where it comes to. So farm murders doesn't stand in isolation. It's farm murders is the precursor to all the other problems that's coming. How do you handle it? How are you going to tackle your sales? Don't you think that's enough for tonight?
Yeah, I think we've done well. I think we covered a lot of ground, and although we covered sort of peripheral areas, I think that's been important. Klaas, is there something you'd like to say in wrapping up tonight's discussion?
I'm going to be totally honest. A lot of people have asked me, is farm murders, farm attacks ever going to stop? No, it's not. Because you see, as long as there's a white people that is of Calvinistic, for lack of a better word, a background. Because in the end, what all these things boil together, only about one thing. It's the battle, and it's an age of battle between the forces of the light, which is God, the forces of darkness, which is Satan. Yeah. So as long as there's a white person alive, that's the one thing. And as long as there's money to be made, as long as there's minerals, there will be farm attacks. Because in the end, and we spoke about armament. In the end, what is the main things? The two main loot log components that's been taken from a farm. It's cash and it's firearms. And if you don't have cash from the farm, they take you to an ATM and you withdraw money. And it's happened. And on the way there, they raped the women.
Oh.
Was killed in the southeast Free State. His wife was abducted. They drove from town to town to town, withdrew money. It is an absolute wonder that woman had her cell phone with her, and when the time was right, she could say, I'm here and here and here, because word was out for her. And I don't know how much they withdrew. Look at this one guy that was murdered. He was
Sorry guys, it's my computer playing up. It'll be fine in a second. Gotta love this.
Assets that is by Lutulias. And Lutulias says, but we can't pay our salaries. And a week later, you don't hear anything about it because there was a farm attack that yielded something like 100,000 rand, and the salaries were paid.
Voila. That's exactly the truth. It's the truth. It's the truth.
And
I've been in the Thule house many times.
The fire also
Yeah. Chris, Klaas, you are so correct. But you see, again, I was a volunteer in the military, okay?
Yeah.
I served in many posts. I got court-martialed in 1977 for building diesel engines into mine vehicles. At that stage, mine vehicles had petrol engines. And in the court-martial, I said, but nobody burned. So the court-martial was withdrawn. But it was because P.W. Botha's son-in-law, Uwe Paschke, had the right to supply the diesels to the military, and we didn't take the diesel engines from him. But what we did was the right thing. Kat Liebenberg, the brigadier, said, you did the right thing. That's why the court-martial is not proceeding. And this is what is happening. The white troops would sit and say, Lieutenant, I'm going to call my daddy. He's going to fuck you up. Guess who got fucked up? Not me. Okay? The big thing is, people are... This is where the white South Africans came short. They were taught the so-called Calvinistic culture and not to question authority. Black people came as activists. Today they're all spectators. They're all falling into that trap. They all lost it. They all lost the situation. And unless we want to get ahead and understand what's going on, as I said, that is what I would say to Rob Hersov. That is the way to go. Because you know what? I can get any judge to do the quite correct thing, because he doesn't like to be exposed with his pedophilia, with his orgies, with his drug sniffing. Remember, we're dealing in a social laboratory. And unless we use the social laboratory to right the wrongs, and listen, don't tell me apartheid was wrong. Of course it was wrong. How was it wrong? For people's dignity. But for advancement, it was much better. Wendy Luhabe, Sam Shilowa's wife, and Thabo Mbeki's Nyatsi. You know what a Nyatsi is, Scott?
Haven't got a clue.
A girlfriend.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay? It's
Yeah.
Nyatsi. She said education was better under apartheid than under the ANC.
Yeah.
A black woman says that. So in other words, what is happening here? Our bloody politicians are not doing their job. Those that are doing the job are victimized. Indeed, as well as by the Dragon Lady Zilla. Because there are too many Freemasons involved, and there are too many pedophiliac actions going on. Too many demented people. And this is where Donald Trump comes into play.
I love that Epstein's files have been released.
Very much. And I think it's time a couple of people in this country gets visited like Epstein.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Right?
Yeah, Johan?
Let's go. Next week we'll be talking with two ladies about child trafficking in South Africa. And Koos, Klaas, you and I, we're going to talk again with Scott on a lot of things. Please start thinking what we can talk about, yes, and how to look at these things.
I've not gone through half of my material with research.
And Klaas, you're up in the like in the roof area of the house, aren't you?
Yes.
No, that's just a filter.
because it does seem to echo a bit, and we had a couple of comments about having an echo with your voice, and it's the way the phone picks up your voice. So we might have to look at sort of maybe a room downstairs where your voice won't echo. But look, it's been a great live stream. Thank you, guys. I look forward to having you both on. Well, Johan's going to be here every Friday. But Klaas, I look forward to seeing you in the future.
Absolutely. And Scott, with regards to that echo, it might be the headset.
Yeah, it could be. But look, it's something we can work on. But you know, we could hear you, but it was just a tiny technical thing. Yeah.
Scott, you must understand. It's not always the technology, it's the paraffin he uses to start the technology. The paraffin he's using is a bit old.
It's like the low-grade coal, you mean?
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Okay, it's really been good.
Tot ziens.
Goed gaan. Okay,
all right, guys. That was
Scott.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Scott, I'm going to call you in 5 minutes. Okay.
Okay. I'll give me 10.
Okay. I also just need to walk around.
All right.
Okay, 10 minutes.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
All right, guys. That was Johan. We all know Johan on Loving Life. He's got a regular video that he puts up. Very, very well-informed guy, ex-intelligence, and he was speaking with Klaas Prinsloo. And just like the old days, I'm going to go out with a theme song, and it's called Farm Murders, The Dirt is Red. And we were thinking about putting some images up of not good stuff, and we decided not to because the video would be taken down by YouTube. But there lies the issue. All right, here comes the theme song to close off tonight, and as Johan has said, next Friday, same time, we will be having a live stream, and we'll be talking about child kidnapping and that horrible area with two ladies. Take care, guys, and here comes your closing theme song.
Einer and Isaac, Esme and Joshua, Joey and Charles, Retha and Puss, Una and Robbie, Marika and Daniel, Eric, Belinda and Louis, and thousands more have all gone on ahead. Shelter them in your arms, Lord, 'cause I know why the dirt's so red. Let their memorial stand till you come back. Burn it on my heart, burn it in my head. Don't let me ever forget, Lord, why the dirt's so red. Kayla, Megan, Quibus, and Ryan, Michelle and Liesl, Dion and Hank, Johnny and Esther, David and Johan, Anna, Rena, and Jocko, and thousands more have all gone on ahead. Shelter them in your arms, Lord, 'cause I know why the dirt's so red. Let their memorial stand till you come back. Burn it on my heart, burn it in my head. Don't let me ever forget, Lord, why the dirt's so red. Lord, is this what it means to turn the other cheek? I know there's a time for praying, one for standing to my feet. 'Cause somewhere a farmer's dying, somewhere one's being hurt, and the liars are still lying for all their worth. Families are still dying in this dirt. Let their memorial stand till you come back. Burn it on my heart, burn it in my head. Don't let me ever forget, Lord, why the dirt's so red. Don't let me ever forget, Lord, why the dirt's so red.